Music and the martial arts, do they go together? In round 8 of the WCMA's Inside the Rings profile of Hanshi Don Culp, we're going to explore Don's experience as the lead drummer for the well-known rock band Beaver Brown, a band that also has its own very unique connection to the martial arts and to the Rocky movie franchise, which we're about to learn as we go inside the ring.
It's time for Inside the Ring with host Mike Petrarca.
So, Rhode Island Music Hall of Famer, drummer for John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band, playing with the Troublemakers coming up soon. Music, how do you have time? How does that fit? We just talked for a while about martial arts.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a segment in its own, but now music. How did you find that in music martial arts parallels?
Well, interesting. Music actually started before martial arts, believe it or not. My father had a vast record collection, some rock and roll, but mainly big band music and jazz. He loved jazz. And for some reason, he wasn't a musician, but he loved drummers. He loved Louis Bellson and probably one that hopefully most people know, Buddy Rich. In fact, him and I, we went to see Buddy Rich a few times.
Oh, wow.
It was a great bond, you know, my father and I, when we went to see Buddy Rich. So crazy, there was an album called Concerto for the Drums by Louis Bellson. There was a picture of him on the cover in a suit with a pinstripe tie, holding drumsticks up like this and just mashing a set of drums. And I used to, I feel sorry for the kids these days who don't get their music like we did in big albums, because I would stare at the pictures of these things. But that was a big motivation for me. Then he would play that music, and I started taking drum lessons in school and jammed with kids when I lived in different areas. But when I moved to Rhode Island, this is an interesting connection, I met the Beaver Brown Band through martial arts. So we were.
That's amazing. Wow.
Our dojo, I was a white belt. Our dojo was at Bonnet Shores, like I told you.
Yeah.
Beaver Brown was living in Narragansett. Mike Antunes, who's a dear friend of mine, was a brown belt. And he wanted to make his black belt. So we opened up the dojo, he saw the sign, and he said, I want to go in there and see if I can complete my journey. So he brought the whole band. So for a while, they all trained. John made I think maybe a brown belt. Pat Lupo made a brown belt. Bobby Catoya, Gary Gramellini. Kenny Silva, the drummer, went more to weight training. They're all dear friends of mine. A few have sadly passed on. But that was the connection. But the interesting story is that Mr. Antunes, when he was going to test for his black belt in front of Nick Serio, chose me as Azuki, which is his partner.
I see.
And so I was a white belt, you know. So we went into
an honor, right?
Oh, incredible honor. And Mr. Antunes' father was there, who was also a black belt, an elderly man, but he sat and watched. And Mr. Antunes, man, he gave me a good beating that day, you know. But I remember Professor Serio was so kind to me, you know. And you all right, Don? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. As I picked myself up off the ground.
Give you an ice bath after or something?
But that started our connection. And then fast forward about 30 years. When I tested for my 7th degree, I believe, I asked Mr. Antunes to be on my board because he was a first degree black belt, but I awarded him his 2nd degree. But as an honorary black belt, but I was able, because I could give him the rank because I was, but it went full circle, you see.
Wow, so that's amazing, DC.
So when those guys came in, I was a drummer, and I'm like, whoosh, I just beeline to them, and they couldn't shake me, you know. And they would bring me into clubs and say, don't drink, and they would sneak me into the back door, and I'd sit on a trap case and watch them and just dream of one day being in the band. So that dream started when I was 16 years old. I'll be 62 in September.
Well, I don't believe you're 62, man.
Well,
I want to see
here's
some
my,
yeah, right? Yeah, I don't believe it.
But that connection started through the martial arts.
That's amazing. So it really does go full circle.
It sure does. And I'm in the band, and Mr. Antunes and I were on the road all the time, and we share. It's a dream come true.
That's amazing. And you talk a lot about the creative process. How important is it, just creativity in general for you? Music, martial arts, life?
Well, I think creativity is a part of being a human. And that's why I said that I'm a little down on all the internet and the video games and things that entertain people by just pushing buttons. I think it's very, very important to complete ourselves as human beings, because animals are instinctual. They kind of follow the same pattern, and they're cool with that, and that's beautiful. But we have the ability to think outside the box. Unfortunately, some people use it in negative ways, but if you use it in a positive way, it's not only stimulating for people around you, but it stimulates your own health. And if you ask me how I keep in shape, part of it is creating. I'm always making things up, I'm creating, I'm building things, and that's a very important part of who I am and what I do. And I try to share that passion with students. Our dojo, Shizen-do, means, as we discussed, the natural way. That means your natural way, my natural way.
I see.
So we have certainly a structured format, and there's a lot of drills. I do a lot of techniques, but not as many as I used to. It's more drills. It's more footwork maneuvers, hand maneuvers, just to get people moving in a certain way. Because let's face it, in a fight, you're not going to do technique number 15.
Right,
you better be able to
right.
frickin' improvise, or you're going to be in trouble, you know?
Absolutely. They're not going to wait for you to do the kata.
Right.
Freeze frame.
Yeah, and you don't know what's coming and how it's coming. So, you know, there's certain philosophies that you want to adhere to because instinctually you want to react in a certain way. But the creativity is a big part of this because it allows you to, I believe, get to know who you are. And it's very satisfying when you create something. So I think it completes us as human beings, and I encourage people to create. I don't know, when you were a kid, if you had cell phones or whatever, we didn't have any of that stuff. So we had to make up games, and we had to solve our problems, you know.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story.
Please.
When I was young, I'm an only child, so I had to be very creative.
There you
and do
go.
Things on my
Right.
own. And actually, I remember sitting downstairs on my Sega Genesis, and I was playing this basketball game, right? And I muted it because I wanted to be the announcer in the basketball game. So I was going, oh, he's up for the shot.
Yeah.
Oh, Shaq blocks it. And, you know, and my mom was upstairs with a friend, and the friend was like, does Michael have an imaginary friend? And she's like, no. He just likes to play, you know, announcer. But that's the whole thing, you know, being creative. Cool. And then some things do come full circle.
Look at you now.
Right here with you.
That's awesome.
So I totally get it. I totally
understand. So if you were intimidated or didn't have that insight, we might not be sitting here right now.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
So many good things come out of creativity, you know.
Absolutely.
It's important.
And the other aspect, I think, is learning other people's culture, traveling around, seeing how other people do things. Where has music led you around the globe and nationally?
Oh boy! Well, I did a tour of Europe with Beaver Brown. That was pretty cool. We did some cruises that go all over the world, so to speak. But all over the United States, from California to Connecticut and everywhere in between. In fact, I'll be leaving next week. We're doing Washington, Maryland, and then somehow ending up in Connecticut. So,
we caught you. We caught you in the midst of this.
Yeah, it's rare that I can sit down and do this, but yeah. So it's been great to meet a lot of cool people.
Yeah.
And making music in different areas, it's really quite beautiful.
Now, also tying in the martial arts component, have you had a chance to go to any different martial arts schools abroad or meet with any senseis or sifus?
Yeah, I try to. Sometimes, we're busy with the band or it's in the evening, so they're closed.
Yeah.
But I have, wandered into a few dojos, and it's been a great experience. One time a guy he kicked me out because I said, I'm a black belt from Rhode Island. He was like, get out of here, Yeah, so that was in Austin, Texas. I'll never forget that.
Okay, why?
Well, I think it's ego, to be honest with you. I mean, I was coming in with my sword and shield on the ground just to try to meet him, but he might have saw it as a challenge or something. So, but that's no big deal. But I met a lot of really nice people,
Nice.
over the years. I remember one person said to me that when you fight, you should drum on your opponent, and that was kind of neat,
Drum on the
yeah, because
I like it. Couple of hammer fists.
Yeah, loosen up and like you're drumming, So that's a good connection physically as well.
That's really cool. Have you met anybody that you really, other than that person, that you really remember, or anybody really worldwide notable in your travels?
Well, I met Chuck Norris once. That was pretty cool.
That's amazing.
And Bill Wallace and Don Wilson. I know you mentioned.
I know them. Bill Wallace and Don Wilson. Interviewed them.
And some kickboxers and boxers. Quite a few different people, celebrities. Actually, I just had, believe it or not, that we had dinner with Sylvester Stallone recently.
No way.
I swear to God.
Sly?
Yeah, man, it was so well.
Jeez.
Well, John Cafferty sang "Hearts on Fire" on Rocky IV.
Rocky, of
right.
course.
So Sly's brother Frank is a musician, and he was playing at the Hard Rock, and we opened up for him. But they were also, ironically, filming a video, what's it, would be a show where they're following the families around, a reality show, I guess. And so we were part of the reality show. So we met at this big steakhouse, and we were all there. They wired us up in this camera crews, and all of a sudden I hear an applause, and he comes walking through the restaurant, and he's bigger than life. And he sits down at the end table, and I'm sitting far away because I'm just a drummer. But after about 10, 15 minutes, he was talking about filming Rocky and about how he was bringing in like George Foreman or who was it, different fighters, Ernie Shavers and different guys. But he said they don't know how to control their punches, so they were hurting him. He said. But someone in the band said, "We have a boxer in the band." He says, "Who's that?" And they pointed me out, and we started talking across the table. And
it was like, "Hey Don, how you doing?"
Yeah, it was like that. But the cool thing was, he said, "That's a real boxer," and he says, "I just play one on the movies."
Hey, that's
that was cool. Yeah, so we took a picture with our fists like that. It was awesome.
Hey, that's cool.
Super nice cat, super nice guy. It really admire
that's an amazing story. See, I don't get it. There's a certain amount of research you can't do. Did that happen recently?
About 6 months ago, right.
That's amazing.
And I heard the show aired, and there we are sitting at the table, you know, and so we had a little appearance on the show. And he introduced us, too, which was really cool. He came on stage and introduced us, and that was really neat.
Together for John Cassidy and the Beaver Brown Band.
That's amazing,
So
man.
I met some very interesting people.
Yeah, sure have. And they've met you, which I'm sure has been a great experience, too.
Oh, I guess so, but it's been a good experience all the way around.
It seems that Don's fate was destined to be with the band Beaver Brown. The full circle connection back to the martial arts and people such as Professor Nick Serio can't just be a coincidence. It all seems like destiny. For a boy who grew up part of his life as an orphan living in foster homes, to not only becoming a revered martial artist, but to also be in a renowned rock band, and to be an inductee in the Rhode Island Music Hall of Fame, wow, who says dreams don't come true? Out of all Don's great accomplishments, I think we can all agree his greatest accomplishment is the time he gives back to those in need. Whether it be the youth or artists in need, Hanshi Don Culp has dedicated a great deal of his life to helping others. Don, we thank you for being a martial artist and a great role model. And most of all, we wish you nothing but happiness, as it's well deserved. Till next time, this has been Mike Petrarca for the WCMA's Inside the Ring, where we profile martial artists, the athletes, and the people who help to make martial arts fun for everyone to enjoy. Take care. If you would like to learn more about Hanshi Don Culp, or if you're interested in training at his dojo, his doors are always open at 220 Old Baptist Road in North Kingston, Rhode Island. Or you can visit him on the web at donculp.net or call 401-885-9774.